Hello everyone, welcome to Felicity Yarn Studio. If you're new here, my name is Zoe. Welcome, thank you for joining us today. I am a fiber artist coming to you guys from the foothills of North Carolina. So if you're a returning viewer, of course, welcome to you guys as well. You all know what you're about to get into. Yeah, I am back, I am here. I had every intention of sitting down last week and recording, and I was about to be like, yeah, nothing's happened in the last few weeks. It was finally kind of uneventful. And then I woke up Monday morning, 3 a.m. With what I thought was food poisoning at the time. I think it was more like a stomach bug or norovirus or something that's been going around, because it took me a good 3 or 4 days to get back. But I guess that is just the story of my life these days. Is I cannot film a podcast without getting sick in between. I feel like I've been sick more the last few months than I have in the last few years altogether. But anyway, nonetheless, that is to say that I have a lot to share with you guys today. I have, I think, a record-setting 5 finished objects to share with you guys today, 1 or 2 whips, and a spinning project. So let's just go ahead and jump right in and talk about the Primrose shaped elephant in the room here. I have finally finished my Primrose jumper. Yay! This is a pattern by Marie Wallin. I decided to knit this jumper as part of a knit along that Nikki from the Knitting with Cat Hair podcast started not last year. Wait, she started this about a year, almost 2 years ago. It was August, not last August, but the August before. 2021, I believe, is when she first started the knit along. So it is in its second year of iteration. So thank you, Nikki, for extending this, because yeah, this took every ounce of willpower to get through. I do love it, with a few caveats that I will get to here in a minute. I am gonna give you guys my kind of honest breakdown of this pattern. Not that I've not been honest in the last few times that I've spoken about this, but I did kind of want to go through in detail, like specifically the things that really got under my skin, but also talk about the things that I do actually like and enjoy about this pattern. I'm going to steal a line from my friend Gemma of the Gemma B Makes podcast and put some footage of me prancing around the garden in my jumper while I talk about it here with you guys. So as you can tell, it did kind of come out a little bit oversized. I will take responsibility for that for 2 reasons. Firstly, when I started this a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I was at a different weight. My bust size was about 6 inches bigger than what it currently is. I did knit the size extra large, so that is the largest size that is offered. And if I remember correctly, I'm going to pull out the hard copy and double check this. The largest size is supposed to fit a 46-inch bust. Currently, I have a 46-inch bust, so when I started it, my bust was around 52, sometimes 54 inches. So as you can see, it is pretty roomy on my 46-inch bust. The other aspect to this is, for once, I actually did not gauge swatch on this sweater, which I realize is crazy talk. I realize I screwed up in that aspect and that I should have done a gauge swatch. But like, the sleeves fit pretty much perfectly, so I don't feel like my gauge was necessarily the issue. I should have followed my instincts. I did get on Ravelry at one point and look at other people's patterns and projects. A lot of people mentioned that instead of joining in the round where the pattern called for, as I did, they actually went through and knit this motif, this gold mustard yellow band here, and joined here under the arms. I really wish that I had heated those who had gone before me as far as making this pattern and separated there, because that is my only complaint on this fit, is it's a little weird in the armpit area. But I'm just trying to embrace it as an oversized sweater and not think of it as something that is supposed to be super close fitting. That being said, if I had made the sleeves any smaller, they would have been too tight. They're kind of like a nice fitted sleeve. So there's that. I'm gonna go ahead and get some of the negatives out of the way. A few criticisms that I have for Marie Wallin and her patterns and her pattern writing style. And this is just me personally, things that did not mesh for me. First of all, her schematics are a little bit lacking as far as what you're supposed to be aiming for. I did buy the kit from her, so it is in all of the original colors that she designed the pattern in her own yarn, which I'll get to my thoughts on the yarn here in a second. But maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit here, but it annoyed me that on the hard copy there is an entire row missing there of the color key. So I had to constantly have my digital copy pulled up as well, which is fine. I mean, I use my digital copy most of the time anyway, but it was nice to have both to refer to back and forth. While I'm on the subject of the key, it really annoyed me that there were X's and a slash line next to each other on the chart, and it just made, like, trying to read that, it made my eyes go cross-eyed a few times. So I did, on my digital copy, actually shade it in a few places so that I could visually read that a little bit easier. Another minor little gripe of mine. Okay, at the beginning of each section, she puts this little blurb in. Beginning and ending rounds as indicated. Use the ferrule technique as described on page 5 and repeating the last stitch pattern however many times around each round. Continuing in blah, blah. Obviously, it is an all-over colorwork Fair Isle knitting pattern. What else are you going to be doing? Like, I don't know. I don't understand why this is inserted after, like, every set of instructions. I don't know. It's weird to me. Like, it's one area where there's actually too much information given. I actually feel like she does not give enough information in some places. For example, the sleeves is this chart, and there's no indication in the written instructions that you're supposed to go back to the beginning and do the first 13 rows in order to complete the sleeve colorwork section. And then another little lazy thing that I felt like, and I realize I'm nitpicking here, I might be ragging a little hard, in some of the smaller charts for up here on the yoke where it's a smaller repeat. Obviously, when you're at this section, you're trying to add a little bit of height as well. So in the written instructions, it would be like complete rows 1 through 10 of the chart, then knit an even round in whatever color yarn, and then go back to the chart and complete rows 11 through 15 or whatever it is. Why didn't she just make charts with those even rounds in there? Like, I don't get it. It feels lazy. It feels like she took the information from the smaller sizes and just kind of wrote in some last minute instructions rather than like actually designing the charts be custom to the larger sizes, if that makes sense. Because yes, when you buy the kit, I bought the large and extra large size. The small and medium is its own kit. You only get the pattern copy for the size kit that you purchase, which, not that I'm going to go knit a small of this now, but what if I wanted to? Like every other pattern that I've ever bought for garments, you get every size range available in there. So I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way. That's the only way that I can describe it. So what did I actually like? I did actually really enjoy the yarn that is included with this kit. And again, this is yarn that she has milled, and I assume she has some say over the colors that are produced. This is her British Breeds base. It is a fine blend of wool spun in Devon from Blueface Leicester, Exmoor, Wensleydale, and Zwartbull sheep breeds. So it is very sheepy. It is very rustic, if you will. It is not merino as far as softness goes, but it does have a lovely depth of shade, and I think that is from some of these sheep breeds. I think the Zwartbulls is one that's like a naturally darker shade. That's probably where some of this depth of shade comes from in the color. But it's a very nice non-superwash wool. It is not super prickly. I actually don't have any type of undershirt or anything on with this. It is right next to my skin. It's a little bit prickly in some areas. Like normally I probably would wear it with either a long sleeve shirt or just a regular tank top underneath. It's just already like 80 degrees here, and I wanted to, I'm powering through for y'all. I am wearing the all over colorwork sweater so I can record this. I am dedicated to my craft. Anyway, yes, I do really enjoy the yarn. It is, again, it still smells quite sheepy. I did full on wet block this. She does say to like iron it and steam block it, but I went on ahead and just soaked it because that's what I do. And I just laid it out to dry on my drying rack where all of my laundry air dries. I really don't pin out any of my sweaters anymore, although I may in the future try pinning out the sleeves. Personally, I've just found that pinning whenever you're blocking your knits, once that thing fully dries, once you take it off the mats, it's just going to spring right back to where it wants to be. That's at least been my experience, so I just don't even bother anymore. I just try to knit as close to the size that I am going for as possible. As far as this kit goes, again, I think I spent about $200 on this for the pattern, the yarn. Again, you get the little tote bag that goes with it. So clearly I have lots of leftover yarn here. I haven't even weighed this to see how much it is. Easily enough for like a hat and a pair of socks. And again, I knit the absolute largest size, which was the extra large, and it does say to fit a bust 44 to 46 inches. So yeah, I do actually think that the value that you get for the yarn for that amount of money is actually quite good. Just for me personally, the pattern writing leaves something to be desired. My standards are probably a little bit high. I probably expect certain things after knitting from so many other great indie designers out there. Patterns with such a wealth of information that when you then go to knit something like this, I don't necessarily need my hand held throughout the pattern, but I'm just looking for something a little bit clearer, a little more cohesive. Maybe my brain just works in a completely different operation zone form than Marie Wallin's does. All right, let's wrap it up on Primrose. Final thoughts. If I had to rate like my entire experience knitting, the purchase, the pattern out of 5 stars, I gotta be honest, it would be like a 2.5 star, but I'd round it up to 3 just because I love how beautiful the finished object turned out. I'm very much a product knitter, so like having the finished object is what gives me more satisfaction than sometimes the process does. And especially considering my experiences through the process of making this was super frustrating at times. I think the finished product being so nice boosts that score up for me. So I don't know if I would recommend going out and purchasing one of her kits, maybe not for a sweater for the first time if you are leery of making that kind of financial investment. In my opinion, there's probably other better, well-written, all-over colorwork patterns out there. This is the first one that I've done, and that is a very traditional Fair Isle type of knit versus like something that like is like a Caitlin Hunter all-over colorwork sweater. So yeah, probably not an experience that I'm going to reproduce anytime soon. But again, I'm super happy with this. It will be perfect for our trip to Iceland that is happening in a few weeks. And yeah, that was my main motivation for knocking this thing out. I have been a knitting machine the last few weeks. As evidenced of my knitting machine prowess, I'll get to my other finished objects here. But first, I just wanted to say, you guys, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I hope that you would consider hitting that subscribe button. Drop me a like if you're enjoying this video. I am like this close to 1,000 subscribers, and I would love to do a giveaway on the next video. Maybe I'll pick up a special skein or two in Iceland for that. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to 1,000 subscribers. And yeah, sorry, I had to throw my little spiel in there. Let's go ahead and move right along to the next finished object that I have. And again, fair warning, these are all things that I am planning on packing for our trip in a few weeks. Last time I shared with you guys the scarf that I started knitting for my husband, Jason. So again, this is the Seafarer Scarf. This is a free pattern that I came across on Pearl Soho's website. It is just a basic fisherman's rib, which is like a faux brioche stitch all over. You cast on, I don't remember how many stitches. And yeah, you just knit and purl your whole way through until it is as long as you want it to be. So Jason is 6'5", so I wanted it to be fairly long. I made this out of Harrisville Designs in their Nightshades yarn. This is, I believe, the colorway Last Call. So it's got like the blue flecks milled in with the black fiber to make this kind of nice, I want to say tonal, but it's like not tonal in the same way that hand-dyed yarn is tonal, but you know what I'm saying. It's got that undertone of blue to it. But yes, I held the yarn double. I think I used size 11 needles for this, and I used 4 skeins total, so 2 held double. And it's a scarf. I did not love knitting it, but once I really got into a groove on the like second half of it, I just kind of buckled down and powered through and knitted this thing. He's happy with it. I am happy with it. It's borderline, like if I wear it, it's borderline like the Lenny Kravitz super gigantic scarf, and like I might actually need to steal this from time to time because I know he's not gonna wear it outside of like the dead of winter, or if we go somewhere super cold like Iceland. Yeah, it's pretty cozy, so I'm pretty happy with this. Next up, I finished another project for Jason for this trip, and these are the Char mittens or Char gloves, or maybe they're just called Char. I don't remember. And I believe this pattern is by Andrea Rangel Knits. Excuse my ends dangling out. I finished the fingers last night and I just couldn't be bothered to sew them in, so I'm going to be doing that this afternoon. But yes, I did finish his second glove, and again I put some stainless steel thread on the pointer fingers so he could use them with his phone without having to take his glove off. Now, this one I duplicate stitched over, and I did not love the way that process worked out for myself as the maker. On this second one, I actually just spooled off some thread and then I held it with the yarn as I knit. I think I only knit 2 rows with it on like 6 stitches or something, and I just left a long float. And honestly, the stainless steel thread, like, it's triggering my like revulsion to even think about it. It causes textural issues for me, but it kind of like sticks together on its own. I don't know, it's weird. I will probably never use the rest of that stuff ever again. It was not a pleasant experience for me. I don't remember which episode I talked about that in, but yeah, it like gives me the heebie-jeebies to think about touching it and using it. Anyway, other than that, I actually enjoyed making these gloves, even though I drug the process out. There's something about like the mental struggle of getting to the fingers on gloves. I know it's not going to take me long to magic loop these couple of inches of like 22 stitches or whatever it is, and yet it feels so tedious and so just like, I don't want to do it. Like, the contrarian in me comes out when I have to do something like that. I just had to sit down and force myself to finish them. I really enjoyed the cuff, which is a faux braided cable stitch, and then the palm, she refers to it as like a pebble stitch, but it's basically like the eye of partridge heel texture there. So I enjoyed knitting both of those parts of this pattern. I could actually see either making a straight up like mitten with these motifs or adapting them into a sock pattern to make a not vanilla sock for once in my life. So that is something that I may experiment with at some point in the future. But otherwise, this was an extremely well-written pattern. There are very easy to understand, written, detailed instructions. I would highly recommend this. I'm pretty sure I used whatever needle size the pattern called for. I made the largest adult size. I want to say I used size 2 needles, and I used Olann Yarn in their sock base. I don't remember what the colorway is on this yarn, but I really like it, and I think there's enough leftovers that I can get myself a pair of shorty socks out of this really pretty yarn that's kind of like black with some charcoals and some golds and browns in there. It's a very subtle kind of nuanced shade. So those are done. The next finished object I have are my mittens. These are very, very loosely based off of the Tinsel Mitt pattern by Andrea Mowry. I talked last time about how I decided to omit the decorative stitch that runs along the back of the hand and on the palm. It's just a slip stitch that runs down here. I couldn't see it when I was knitting. I did kind of mod a few other things, mainly being that since I was using Handspun Yarn, my row gauge was way off. I had to knit a lot more rows than what she was calling for in the pattern for like every section of it. I elongated the cuff. I wanted a longer cuff. I elongated this part to come all the way up to my pinky. I think she calls for it to come like somewhere around here. I also changed a little bit on the flap here. The rib stitch is supposed to go all the way around on the front part too, but I really just wanted a kind of seamless flap on the front. And I will say she included instructions from Isolde Teague's website about picking up on these stitches to get that kind of seamless look, and that was really helpful. That actually I think was probably the most useful piece of information that I got out of this pattern. think I decided on the size adult medium for myself for these. I want to say I used a US size 6 needle. It was either 5 or 6, I don't remember. And yeah, I just wanted a nice long flap, a nice long mitt there. So they're very easy to get in and out of. I can just kind of slip my fingers out whenever I want to use them and kind of scrunch them back in. I think they will be perfect for walking around town when I don't want to be wearing like the big bulky gloves that I have. So yes. My gloves are done. Again, I used Handspun Yarn. This is from the Malabrigo braid that I spun up last year. I kind of spun it into a loosely a DK weight yarn. So there they go. I did really love how this Handspun Yarn knit up. So I'm pretty pleased with these as well. All right, last finished object. I don't even think that I had started this last time I recorded. Apologies in advance to my sister Naomi, who has the Yarn Curator podcast, and to Adrian of the Reluctant Sisters knitting podcast. Yeah, I knit another Mussleburgh hat. This is from the skein of Handspun that I spun last like December or January. It is from a scrappy bundle from Wound Up Fiber Arts. So let me open it up here. I was so in love with this scrappy skein when I finished it, and I held on to it. I didn't know what I was gonna make with it. I had a few ideas, but I really didn't want to like break it up into any kind of color work. I just felt like the whole thing needed to stay kind of as one complete like documentation of this spin. So here it is, and it is beautiful. I am really itching now to do another scrappy spin. I do have another little scrappy bundle from her. I love this thing. I love how it turned out. I love how one end is kind of like these warmer tones, and then on the other end I've got these cooler blue tones going on. Complete accident, did not plan that at all. So that means that I essentially have like two different hats in one here. Let me get it sorted out. I think that this is the side that I will wear out more often because my coat is kind of like this deep plummy eggplant color. So I really like it like this. Yes, I feel like one of the kids. I think this is how they're wearing their hats these days, with the top poofed out. I don't know. I'm officially an old now, so I guess by the time I figure it out, they'll change it and start wearing their hats differently. But I do really like that I can fold it up as well. It's nice and tight. I think I actually made the adult small size on this one. And I knit it fairly densely because this was also about a DK weight spin. And I knit this on US size 3 needles. So again, it's quite dense, but I'm okay with that. I really wanted something a little bit thicker and a little bit warmer for this trip. I know that there are people like Naomi and Adrian who are kind of over this pattern, and I get it. Everybody has been knitting it. It's kind of like vanilla socks at this point. Like, what is there left to say about this pattern? However, I will advocate for it and say it is an excellent use of handspun yarn, especially something a little bit wacky, a little bit busy, that maybe you don't know what to do with. So yes, this is the other side. Again, really like how this turned out. I really enjoyed the fit. As far as knitting it goes, I just appreciate the simplicity of it, of the pattern. I know actually that my mom hated knitting one. And I think it's just, for some people, it is like the perfect pattern and that you just can mindlessly go round and round. And then for other people, it's like torture. They need more than that. Apparently, I'm not one of those people. I do not need more than just 100 or so stitches in the round endlessly. Like I said, I am super thrilled with how this came out. As I was knitting it up, our living room, I've talked about this before, is super dark, and I usually have to knit with my neck lamp on in order to see what I'm working on properly, and I absolutely needed it for this. Not because I couldn't tell what I was doing going round and round and round, but mostly because the light shining on it, I was able to thoroughly appreciate just how these colors were coming up. It was a bit potato chippy in that each round the colors were changing and shifting, and I never knew what I was going to get to next. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. And as I mentioned, I do have a second scrappy bundle as well as some little odds and ends that I plan on spinning up another one of these. And I would either like to make either a second night shift shawl, because I really enjoyed knitting that, or my other kind of thought that kept running through my mind as I was knitting this would be to do kind of a hybrid Mussleburgh and sea glass hat by Wallin Pine. So do like a 1x1 all over color work in this format to kind of showcase some more handspun yarn, but maybe to add a little bit of knitting interest. I would just need to work out the particulars on some of the things like the increases and decreases, which shouldn't be terribly hard, but yeah, it's kind of an idea that has been running through the back of my mind. So love this, love it. I loved spinning up this skein of yarn. I loved just staring at it. I'm really happy that I found a pattern that kind of showcases this yarn in all of its glory. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm glad that I kind of sat down and knocked this out at the very last second. I might just go through my handspun bin and see if there's anything that would make a good Mussleburgh hat. Sorry y'all, this is only my... I think this is only my fourth. It's my fourth. I really only wear one of the two that I've made for myself, and I made one for Jason. So I don't feel like I've made an excessive amount of them. I don't want to talk too much about this because there's not a ton to say at this point, but I did just want to share an update on my Darjeeling cardigan, since that was the other kind of main thing that I talked about last time. I was very close to joining the front two panels and the back panel and start knitting back and forth flat. So there's the underarm join, and I just measured this. I have knit about 13 inches of the body so far. So if this was just a regular kind of length cardigan that would hit around my waist or so, I'd actually be like right at the point ready to start the ribbing for that. However, this is a long sort of grandpa style cardigan, and I think I need 24 inches of length. So I'm a little bit over halfway there. I am currently alternating between two groups of skeins. So that is 6 yarn cakes that I am juggling at any given time. So I'm not even going to pull them over here. I'm using one strand of lace weight yarn from Brooklyn Tweed, and then one strand of lace weight silk and mohair, and the third strand is the brush Surrey alpaca, which is a little bit heavier than lace, might even be a little heavier than fingering weight. But yes, all 3 of those is creating this lovely halo-y, soft, squishy goodness. The Brooklyn Tweed colorway, I believe, is called Arabesque. It is in a discontinued base of theirs. And then I dyed up the other 2 bases in one of my colorways called Hellebore. So yeah, I am enjoying now picking this up and knitting it without any pressure, actually. I am just kind of enjoying it as a bit of a slower knit, even though it's knit on US size 10.5 needles. I did go up a needle size from what the pattern suggested for this. It's just really nice to sit down and knit and purl back and forth, surprisingly, in the evenings now that my Primrose is done, all of my other trip knits are done. It's nice to have something that I feel like there's very little pressure behind. If I finish it in time for the trip, fantastic. If not, I'm not worried about it at all. I will actually look forward to coming home and having this to kind of pick up and knock out as something easy to get my mojo going once we return home. So that's that as far as knitting goes. I do have one spinning project to share with you guys. So as I was sitting here knitting up my Primrose, I was like, okay, yes, even though this is like, I keep calling this a traditional style, Fair Isle style pattern, I was like, you know, really for Iceland, I should have knit myself a Lopa Yesa, which is their traditional type of yoked sweaters. And then I was like, got to thinking, well, I think I have some Icelandic wool in my stash, if I remember correctly. So naturally I went digging, and I did have this bump of fiber. I don't know, it was roving. It's from Cunnington Farms in Moab, Utah, and I believe my mom picked this up for me on one of her travels in the last year or two. It says it's an exclusive fiber blend and that it is Border Leicester and Icelandic, and it comes from the sheep named Thorberg. So I kind of, for some reason, thought when I read the tag that it was like a milled blend of Border Leicester and Icelandic, but I actually looked up their website and it looks like they crossbreed those two breeds. So that is what this is. It's a crossbreed wool that I have here that I have spun up. This spin was unlike any other spin that I have done. I just kind of let the fiber do whatever it wanted to do, to draft however it wanted to draft. Again, it was a roving, so it was milled, and like theoretically the fibers should have all been kind of going in the same direction, but it was such a like curly, I don't want to call it coarse. It's not like a pin straight with a really tight crimp type of fiber. It definitely is very kind of curly and all over the place. So I actually probably could have just spun it without doing any kind of drafting whatsoever and wound up with a really chunky yarn, but I did kind of draft it ever so slightly as it was going into my wheel. I did spin it on my Shocked Ladybug, and yeah, so I just did like the loosest amount of twist on it. I left a lot of loft and air in the yarn. I didn't really try to like compress the fiber as I was feeding it into the wheel. So I would actually call it more of a worsted, no, I would call it more of a woolen spun, even though it had a worsted prep. I think between the fiber and the way that it spun up, it definitely turned out more as a woolen spun, kind of lofty. I did decide to do a 2-ply with it, and I forgot to calculate my yardage. I need to do that, but this was 4 ounces, and I think I got like a heavy worsted to a, it's probably even closer to like a chunky spin. No idea what I want to do with this. I just kind of wanted to get, you know, more in the mood and have a little bit of experience with some Icelandic wool. So actually, these are very similar as far as the amount of like prickle. This might even be a tad bit softer than the British breeds, but this also has Blueface Leicester in it. I think this would make a good yarn for like some house slippers or maybe a hat, but definitely something that would make for good like outerwear, maybe a pair of mittens or something. I'm done with mittens. I've reached my mitten quota for the decade. Yeah, I could actually see myself making some like house socks out of these. So that might be what happens. Probably not happening before our trip, but yeah, I really enjoyed spinning it. And again, it was something that kind of, this in conjunction with knitting the scrappy skein, the Mussleburgh hat, really kind of made me want to pull my wheel back out. So I actually have pulled my e-wheel back out, and I am back into the sweater spin that I started back in October. So I will try to make a good bit of progress before I pull that out and show it to you guys. All right, that is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am proud of myself for still making it here and recording, even though life keeps trying to knock me down. I just keep getting back up. So yeah, again, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. We're going to do a giveaway once we hit 1,000 subscribers, so I'm really excited for that. Thank you if you already do stick around, if you like or comment or any of that good stuff. It's been a lot of fun going on this little YouTube journey, and I'm really looking forward to what the rest of the year holds for me and for you guys, for everybody. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it. As always, I hope that your knitting is behaving, and I hope that you guys are doing well, and I will see you again soon. Bye.